Welcome back to the Winter Growers Podcast. In this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with seasoned and expert winter growers Paul and Sandy Arnold of Pleasant Valley Farm in Argyle, New York. Sandy and Paul have been involved with winter growing since they first purchased their 60-acre property 35 years ago. With 3 large RIMOL high tunnels, numerous cat and field tunnels, and dedicated wash pack and climate-controlled storage facilities, they have honed their year-round systems on 3 cultivated acres, and they've created financial stability for themselves and their family. Until recently, 90% of their sales were from farmers markets, and due to the initial impacts of COVID, they transitioned to almost all online sales without skipping a beat. As they are approaching retirement, their farm business is in transition, and they are considering how best to keep the land actively farmed. Their 2 children, Robert and Kim, followed in their footsteps and each have their own farm businesses, Smart Farm Innovations and Pleasant Valley Flowers. Both Sandy and Paul offer an incredible wealth of knowledge and experience with winter production and farming for the long haul, and it was truly an honor to speak with them. This episode of the Winter Growers Podcast is brought to you by Vermont Compost Company. Since 1993, Vermont Compost Company has grown from a small local operation to a company supplying premium living soils to thousands of successful growers all over the country. Combining meticulously crafted compost with intentional sourcing of the highest quality materials and amendments, Vermont Compost Company consistently delivers organic growers the soils their businesses depend on. In addition to product consistency, growers can count on Vermont Compost to provide the technical expertise it takes to make your organic farm flourish. Visit vermontcompost.com to learn more. Why grow alone? This episode is also brought to you by Seed Time. Have you ever struggled with the timing of winter crops and planning your succession plantings? I've been playing around with a new crop planner called Seed Time that makes it so incredibly easy for home gardeners and market farmers alike to visualize when to seed, transplant, harvest, and more all year round. If you'd like to save a ton of time and avoid headaches planning and growing your crops, get your free Seed Time account with a $5 free seed coupon at seedtime.us/no-till podcast. That's seedtime.us/no-till podcast. All right, enjoy the show. Hi, Paul and Sandy. Welcome to the Winter Growers Podcast.
No, thank you, Farah.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us.
It's so great to have you here. Both of you are veterans of winter growing, and I believe we first met in the summer of 2014 for the first Frozen Ground Conference. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. You helped us organize that with your dad, and that was a great event.
Yes. Well, I remember when he was conceptualizing that conference, and I think the name Frozen Ground is such a perfect name for a winter growing conference too. He reached out to you, Sandy, and knew immediately he wanted you involved in that conference, and it was definitely interesting to think about who out there was doing winter growing at the time and how to gather people together and how we could share information, which was the benefit of that conference.
Yeah, a lot of great information came out of that. And as your dad said at the very beginning, he said, I hope that we're still friends at the end of this, running this for 3 days together. And it was super. Lots of great farmers and information.
Yes, well, I think you definitely were friends, and you continue to be friends because it went on for Frozen Ground number 2 in 2016, and then also another one in 2018, which I didn't participate in that one, but 3 times now.
We hope to do another one.
Good. And also what's just great is one of the participants from the second Frozen Ground, Brian Bates, he has been a participant in this podcast as well. So it's nice to see some crossover here. So great organization of people, in my opinion.
Thank you. It was a great idea by your dad.
Well, good. Well, would love to get started. I think most people are familiar with Pleasant Valley Farm and with your names in the winter growing world. I don't know if many people know as much about your background and where you grew up and how you met. So I'd love to get started with that.
I grew up in this area, which is upstate New York, in between Glens Falls and Latham, and grew up in suburbia like most people. Went to visit a farm and a relative once every summer when we were young, and so saw farming at that point. And then when I got out of high school, I went to work for a nursery greenhouse operation, and that's where I learned growing. I learned the greenhouse. I learned equipment, everything that had to do with it. I had to cruise, so I learned how to deal with being a manager and so also prioritizing and lots of skills. We just were taught everything that we had to do, welding and the like. But still something was missing. And so I ended up going across country and seeing farming and said, okay, that's what I want to do. And so I started in my father's back. I worked for another vegetable farmer just to get an idea. And then from there, started my own growing in my father's backyard, went to markets, decided, yep, this is what I want to do. And then looked for land, bought it, met Sandy. And then from there, we started from scratch, building, putting up barns, building a house, building a business, having kids, and built the life that we kind of wanted to. So this is how we got to where we are. But all along the way, we were trying to be innovative as we went. And one of that was winter growing, which we started, I think we started winter growing actually in 92. So that was our first year doing it because it was always, there wasn't a lot of information, but it was always interesting to us to try new things.
Okay. So I lived all over the country with my parents when I was younger, and we settled in this area, upstate New York, when I was going into fifth grade, and we stayed there till I got through high school. So I've always loved this area. I've always been involved in having a garden, and I worked at greenhouses through my college summers and afterwards. I just always loved the outdoors. And when I met Paul, I thought, hey, I never really thought about being a farmer's wife or a farmer, but I always wanted to work for myself, and I always wanted to work outdoors. So it fit in really well. So we bought this land, or Paul actually bought it the year before I met him in 1988. So we purchased 40 acres and then added on 20 acres later. So we actually own 60 acres. And it's just a beautiful setting. We overlook the valley. Hence it's called Pleasant Valley Farm. And it's just a beautiful area. So we've raised our two kids here, homeschooled them, and they're both still part of our business. And they both have their own businesses. So nurturing more people in agriculture.
Do you mind sharing how you met? I always love hearing stories of how people met.
I worked for a management company that took care of properties. That's where I got all my skills for using computers and did some of the business aspect. And Paul was doing electrical work for a company. And so one of the building projects that we did had them hired as the electricians, because Paul did electrical work. And I also had one of my managers at one of my apartment projects that I managed, who thought Paul would be a really great fit for me. So she actually introduced us. She's like, I got this great guy that's doing electrical with us. And so that's how we met each other. And then I actually hired him to help me with some of the projects at the apartments. I had 5 apartment projects that I was in charge of the maintenance on, and I hated doing the electrical. And so I hired Paul. I said, can you come in and help with this? And that just kind of started our relationship to a working relationship that's never stopped.
Well, that's great. I love the friend connection. It's always good when someone sets you up. So, Paul, you mentioned that you traveled a little bit visiting some farms before you really got into it. Do you recall which farms you visited back then? Because obviously that would have been was that in the 70s, 80s that you were visiting farms?
That was in, it was in 87. And And what farms I actually visited, I stopped in Iowa at a typical corn, pig, beef operation that was so typical back in the 80s of a small family farm. But they were doing a bed and breakfast, and I stayed there the night and realized that, after seeing all this farming and seeing what they were doing, and one thing that got me into farming was I wanted to sit down with my family at lunchtime or dinner and have what's on the table ours and have a big gathering. And that's what really spurred me to be farming, was to be home with my family and have that of what I saw when I visited that family farm back in my young years. And so that's really the only farm I visited. So I knew I wanted to farm, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. But on the way back from that trip, I stopped at a farmer's market through a friend who brought me there. And as soon as I walked into the farmer's market, I go, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. I want to raise vegetables. I want to sell them. And then that's how I'm going to make money. Of course, I had no realization that farmers didn't really make any money at farming, but I said, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm just going for it. So so when I came back, I knew that I needed to learn a little bit. And that's when I worked for another farm. And then from there, started my own. So a lot of reading, a lot of visiting other farms since, a lot of, gathering information and just being out there.
And conferences. We've attended conferences and we every time we travel, we stop in at farms. We love visiting farms. You always learn something when you go to somebody else's farm.
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely. So Sandy, when you met Paul and he had this land, did you have a general vision to how to create this farm? And, obviously it must've been a daunting undertaking. And I'm just curious how you approached that.
I think because we were both had vegetable gardens and all of that, and you knew what people wanted. It was just simple. You just start growing, and we just put a little of this and a little of that, and we signed up for farmers markets. So we did farmers markets for 35 years. It was really our bread and butter, and it's what we did. So it wasn't really daunting to me. It was actually great because I always worked like 3 jobs at once. I was always a workaholic, and so when I came to the farm after a couple of years, I just did the farm, and it was really fun to just be in one place and just have one vision and one goal and just to work for ourselves. And the sky was the limit. I think when you work for other people, you learn that if you want something, you can't always get it when you're working for somebody else. But if you strive to do something and you're your own boss, you can make it happen. And I think the one thing that I realized when I worked at a garden center, and it was a great family place, but I spent probably 50% of my time watering things. And I was like, okay, come on, I can design an irrigation system. We can set something up. I can just flip valves, and they would never let me do it. And that was the first thing I said when I came to here. I said, I am not hand watering stuff all the time. So my dad helped engineer what we had here for irrigation systems. So we're always trying to be, as Paul said, we've been innovative, and we've always tried to really make things efficient, and because we wanted to make money at it. We want to make money at farming. Why do you want to work this hard if you're not going to really make a great living and do what you want to do in life?
I think that's one thing that we both came to farming with, because we weren't near 30 when we started, was the fact that we had lots of skills. And we had built all these skills before we started farming. So I said, I worked for electricians, I worked for plumbers, I worked for construction companies. I worked, and she did all this stuff too, along with she was in garden centers. So she knew customer service and she knew how to run a business. So this was all, pretty much the stuff we've all done. It was just a matter of prioritizing. And because in a lot of ways, I just tell people I'm hopelessly practical. So it was just one step. Do this one step, get it done. Now we got the next step. Now we got the next step. And we understood how to start with absolutely nothing. You have to put in a water system. You have to put in electricity. Which one was first? Which one was the most important? So then from there, it just kept going along. But all of course, was subject to how much money do we have at the moment. And then so that's what time, how much time we had and how much money we had, we had time to think about it. What's the best way?
We also had Paul's dad. So we were really blessed to have him. He had built 2 houses and he just loved farming. He always wanted to be a farmer. So when he retired, he basically was here full time and he helped us build this empire that we built here. And it was just, we were just really, really blessed to have him up until 99. He helped build the house, did all of our cupboards, all of our stuff inside the house, because we built the house ourselves. We built almost everything ourselves.
Yeah. There's 2 kinds of jobs on the farm. One is important and one is urgent. And he did all the important things. And Sandy and I just ran around and did urgent things at the moment, put out fires, he would set up irrigation systems so we could save an hour a day, because we wouldn't have time to set it up. He would have time to set it up and he knew how to do these kinds of things. So it all worked. This is what made us move ahead quickly in the beginning. But if you look at, how quickly we moved, it didn't seem that way because we were also, raising 2 kids and, it was we had a lot of irons in the fire at that point.
Yeah. No, it sounds like a great combination. I mean, you had both the family support, the skills, background, and just an entrepreneurial spirit. So it sounds like a great combination to be farmers. So you were born to be farmers, sounds like.
That's been more challenging in my life.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the best work, right? What's challenging and rewarding at the same time. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm curious about the winter growing influences too. When did that kind of take hold for you? Where did you first read about it or hear about it? Yeah.
I don't think we heard about it anywhere. I just know I remember the very first winter and we didn't really see anything that had been done. And we said, well, we want to have spinach all winter just for ourselves. And we put up this small 2x4 tent. I don't know, it was probably 20 feet long.
Yeah.
Just a little 20-foot structure, just teepee kind of style, and planted spinach in it. And it was like, wow, it grew all winter. It didn't need any care. And we got to eat fresh spinach every single day. And so from there, it just, we built bigger. We built what we called them field houses. I mean, I don't even remember the term tunnel being used back in the early 90s. And so then we built field houses for us that were 15 feet by 100 feet. We bent our own pipes, and we still use some of those.
What the premises was to doing this winter growing was it gave us opportunity was the fact that we saw when we first started farming, especially if you're going to markets, you're basically selling from May to the end of October. Well, you made a lot of money during June, July, August, and there was this, time in May and then time in October, which were kind of the shoulder seasons that, the bell curve of income was way down. And we said, boy, if we could start out with a bigger splash in May, we would make more money. And if we could extend it farther in the fall, we would make more money. So from there, we decided to put up these field houses, which then allowed us to plant in March, get spinach and lettuce and radishes and everything going for May 1st sales. Because it also, what pushed us along is in the very early years we were here, we put in a 1/4 acre of asparagus. And of course, you can't just go to the market with just asparagus. You got to have other things. So we started with that. And then as we were planting, you're putting up these structures and you're planting, it's like, we could have stuff in here all winter and eat it. And we could get customers to buy it. And, so then it kind of morphed into all this stuff while we really wanted to do was just extend the season from, have more sales in May and October. But then these tunnels, we just kind of kept going until we had 4 of them going and had all this stuff planted for early sales. And we planted early tomatoes and we hadn't heard anybody doing this kind of stuff, but we were doing it. And then as time went along, everybody started doing it. But it was more of a push of season extension. And then the market started staying open. We pushed the markets to be staying open till the end of November. And then they pushed themselves into December. And then it was, we were not interested in growing in the winter at that point. But back in 2005 to 6, it was 2005, our markets in the area started growing all winter because there was a lot of meat and cheese and eggs, and they needed to keep selling. And so when our customers heard that the markets were going all winter, they looked at us because they knew we were pretty innovative with everything. And I got this look and a question of, well, you are going to be there, aren't you? And I'm like, oh boy, pressure. So this is why we said, okay, we've got to do something for our customers, because they did not want to go back to the grocery store at the end of November. And so then we started growing in the winter time. By that time, Seth Jacobs had started, and we gave him pointers of what we had learned for those times in small tunnels. And then it came back to us. And in 2006, we put up the first high tunnel 30 by 144. And that's how we kind of got started in it, was customer demand. First thing is always marketing. And then from there, how can we do this?
And it's always funny, Clara, because when we started getting into this winter growing, I mean, Paul sort of mentioned, we weren't that interested in it. There's something about working really hard all season and taking a break. And I know you know what that's like. So we used to always be, the market started May 1st, they ended November 1st, and then we extended through Thanksgiving. And I remember Vern called me one day and he says, well, I want to talk to you about winter growing. I said, you don't want to talk to me about winter growing. I said, I really can't stand winter growing. I said, we used to have a break. We used to have some time off, and now it's just crazy. We're busy all the time. He goes, no, you're the exact one I wanted to talk to, because he wanted the pros and cons of winter growing. And I think over the years, we've learned that it's great. You can keep your workers on year round. You can have money coming in year round, but it did change the dynamics of farming, at least for us and our lifestyle. And it took quite a few years for us to figure out, well, you got to have the workers there, but we still need the downtime and take breaks. So we definitely have worked vacations in with winter. We actually just came back from Antarctica, as you know. So you can make the money and then you can have fun with it as well.
Oh, well, first of all, Antarctica, you took a winter vacation to Antarctica. That's unusual.
It is summer there, remember?
True, but it's still not that warm.
It was warmer than here.
Okay, fair enough.
It was beautiful.
What did just real quick, what did you see? What was the highlights of that trip?
Penguins, whales, seals, just gorgeous scenery. I mean, it's pristine. It's beautiful. Yeah.
And it's the seventh continent.
It's the seventh continent. So it's always been on our bucket list, and something came up as a special. So we said, hey, let's do this. It was a Viking cruise, which we've done several of those. It's just
and talking to many people, what was their best trip? Antarctica was always at their top. And we're like, we got to go now. Yeah. And now I see why it's at their top.
Yeah, we kayaked, we out on Zodiacs. The penguins are really cool.
Submarines, they had everything.
Yeah, they had a submarine. So yeah, it was really fun.
That's wonderful. So maybe describe a little bit what, the process that you took to build maybe financial stability in your business so that you are able to take these vacations. What has been the secret, or I don't know. I mean, it is challenging. So
it's not just one thing, that's for sure.
It's a whole list of things.
It's a multiple of many things that bring it all together, but it's still a start of attention to detail, customer service, and keeping some financial stuff so that you can run a business and know where you're making money, where you're not. And that's where I think our strengths lie in that, which of course all lies back to the first thing I said, an attention to detail. So when there's a customer that didn't get what they want, we need to find a way to get it for them. That we've made a mistake, we will drive it to them. We'll do whatever so that customer relation is, right on top. They know we'll do anything for them.
Yeah, we had that big snowstorm this past Friday night, and we switched our whole distribution to Friday instead of Saturday so that the customers didn't have to come out to pick up orders and stuff. And they were just really appreciative of that. Of course, we're driving too. So it was, partly for our crew's safety. And I think also as far as the business end, in our first early years, we didn't go into deep debt. We had a tractor that cost $200. We used a BCS tiller for 4 years before we actually bought a tractor. I think it was 4 years in before we spent $20,000 buying a tractor. And, we had more time than money. at that time. So we took barns down from another place and put 2 barns up. We built our house ourselves. Paul and I are very, very big savers. We're not spenders. Both of us don't like to shop. And we also research things to death and try to find the best bargain and the things that are going to last us. We buy things that are going to last, not necessarily the cheapest, but like our tunnels. There's no wood in our tunnels. There's no wood in our greenhouse. It's going to last. It costs a little bit more, but that's kind of how we've done things over time. And I think it's paid off.
It's been a slow build of what we do on this farm. And that's one of the aspects was that, we noticed right off the bat that if you got bigger, seems like your cost of producing just kind of followed right along the same line as your profit kept going up. Your gross was up there and your expenses follow right with it. And I thought, okay, we've got to be able to figure out how to not have that line from expenses be as fast as the line of gross. So as we were growing and getting bigger. So we did that by taking a little deviant of not caring what something cost up front. It was what did it cost us over the long haul. So as our gross continued to grow and we invested in equipment that was really good and also equipment that would last and made decisions, not to buy used, but buying something new was, in the end, the cost of running this place just kept staying where it was and our gross just kept going up. So that's where it started to pay off. We didn't put in the cheapest system for heating your greenhouse. We probably put in a more expensive system, but it's only costing us a little over $2,000 a year to heat the greenhouse. Well, that's what it cost us when we had a little one. So that was our view was that, we wanted triple the size of the greenhouse, but I don't want it to cost any more to run. And so that's we look for the ways to do that. Same thing with the tunnels. They're going on 25 years old now. Yeah. And we've replaced plastic. That's about it. We haven't had to work on them. So I find that the more time you're spending with your plants, the less time you have spending time working on buildings and tractors, the more money you're going to make. So if you invest well and invest slowly, then it does. So you're looking at the accumulation of what we have, but it's taken us 35 years to get where we are. So it's been a slow build over the years.
And that's radiant heat benches in the greenhouse. That's what he was talking about. So yeah, we've been really love the systems that we've put in.
Can you give an overview of what the farm looks like today in terms of infrastructure? Just sort of, quick overview of tunnels, kind of, what are you using to run your business right now?
There's basically 3 high tunnels. 2 of them are 34 by 144. One of them is 30 by 144. There are 2 temporary tunnels up right now. They're just winter ones that are 14 by 150. There is a main wash pack area, a barn for storage, a small barn sort of like a potting shed, and a greenhouse that's 30 by 48. It's 2 sheds that are 20 to 24 by 72. And basically our house that's
too big.
has a 2-bedroom furnished apartment attached to it and things like that. So yeah, but as we went, the only thing that we ever really had to, mortgage that was the buying of the land. We built the house with the money that we had and then all the farm profits. And then everything that we put up, we have cash flowed as we've gone along or paid 0%. So if you look at the fact that since 2002, we've put in over $750,000 worth of improvements and we've paid 0 in interest in all that time. So this is where running a business is so important of figuring out these kinds of little details that, Sandy might not be out there picking the beans, but she's saving us $2,000 and, this kind of thing over here that is because she's running a tight ship on the business.
You mentioned heating for those tunnels for winter. And I'd love to learn a little bit more of some of those details about the heating system you use and why you use it.
All we have is very simplistic, a white green grow heater, which are 220,000 BTUs. And there's one in each tunnel. And it is there to mitigate, let's say, so the morning we left for Antarctica, it was 18 below 0. Okay. And they are set up through a lot of technology to come on when the temperatures near the plant level gets to 23 degrees. And so they'll come on. So that doesn't happen more than a couple times in a whole year. So they're hard to use in that sense, but they are emergency. So like one of them went on, like the one that's taller, like the Swiss chard kale, that went on at like 10 o'clock at night. The next one, that's our salad mix tunnel, came on at like 2 a.m. And the spinach one never got to 23. It stayed. So that's all we ran. We have that to have that emergency heat, because we've learned over the years that at 21 degrees, permanent damage happens right at plant level. So we've got to I keep it at 23 and above. The reality is that there are only 220,000 BTUs. If you really want to heat these like a greenhouse, you need 660,000 BTUs. So they're very undersized, but they do the job just to keep things alive. The other thing they're used more from is that we need to harvest every week that we need to harvest. So sometimes it is no higher than 20 degrees and cloudy, and the temperature is never going to get to where we can actually get the row cover off to pick unless we turn the heat on. So we actually use the heaters more for harvesting than we use for emergency heat. So that's the system that we're using at this point.
And those are all under 2 to 3 layers of row cover. And then the thermostat
probe is underneath.
The probe is underneath the covers right down at plant level. And it's hooked up to the heaters, and it turns on and off. And of course we have all the technology on our iPhones, the monitoring equipment. So we know exactly what's going on, and we get alarms if things aren't working and all of that. So that's a big part too of, I think our success here for efficiencies. And we only had to have the cooler freeze up once, one night where it didn't shut off and lose a bunch of stuff in there to realize that, monitoring equipment is really valuable.
And your son, Robert, he has his own business, specializes in monitoring equipment. Is that correct?
Yes. Robert has Smart Farm Innovations, and that's built up really fast over the last years. And he's all over the country. Helping people with monitoring equipment. He's a tech Wi-Fi consultant, so he gets Wi-Fi. So like we have Wi-Fi on our whole farm, even down at the neighbor's farm. We can access cameras. So we have, I don't know how many cameras we have here. We have probably at least 8 or 10 cameras, and we can monitor everything that's going on and see who's coming and going. And when people forget to time in or time out on the clock, we can say, okay, we can tell what time they came in and that kind of stuff. But the monitoring, all the sensors, we have about 30 different types of sensors. We can tell if there's water in the basement. We can tell if the pond level is too low because we can't see it. It's too far away. All those fun things.
Yeah. So as he has told us, we have a rather robust system because he wants to practice things here and then he takes it out on the road. So we
He's always like, oh, I'm gonna try this new camera out, and I was like, and how much is this going to cost us? Try out this new camera. So
yeah, well, I'll put in a quick plug for his business because we got the Monit system for Four Season Farm recently last year, and it's been such a game changer. So it's great technology to have. Yeah,
that's what everybody says. It is wonderful.
Yeah, I can sit there in the morning and check out everything that's going on first thing in the morning and still be drinking my cup of coffee.
So let's see here. You've been doing farmers market sales as your primary revenue stream, correct, for 35 years, but then you recently switched just to online sales. And what was the reason for that?
COVID. we were actually over in the South Seas when COVID hit. We were on a cruise and it got cut short. So in March, when COVID hit here, they stopped the farmers markets, which, was our bread and butter. They closed it down for that week. And we're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We had this was like Thursday. And
this is Thursday night when they tell us.
Thursday night, and they're closing it for Saturday. We already had $4,000 or $5,000 worth of produce all prepped, ready to go. And so Robert, of course, he's like, well, no problem. We have a backup plan. So he sent a newsletter out to all of our customers, because we've always had an email list with our customers that we had developed for years and years, which is a great thing to have. And we let them know what was going on, and we gave them options of having a pickup point for an order or having a home delivery. So within 24 hours, he had a platform up online with a link for people to place orders. He had the inventory of everything that we had, and they placed orders, and we made more money on Saturday than we would have been if we'd gone to 2 markets. So that was the start of our online sales. And then over the weeks, the farmers markets actually did start back up again. But we continued the online because a lot of our customers were elderly and they weren't going to leave their house. They were really paranoid. And so we did this huge home delivery loop to...
On top of doing the farmers markets, which were going crazy because people didn't want to, because there wasn't any food in the grocery stores.
So Paul and I were trying to slow the business down. We were at that point, we said, we really want to slow it down a little bit. And we came back home and the kids had ramped everything up. And it's like, we got to grow more. We got to grow more. So that year, 2020, was just a huge workload for all of us, and help was hard to find. But after that year, when we got to the end of the year, we're like, okay, we can't continue to do this. It was going to kill us. So we had to make a decision whether we're going to do the online or we're going to do the farmers markets. So we actually liked the online, although we continued for the past 2 years to do intermittent farmers markets.
Only last year.
And the farmers markets aren't doing as well. I think they in our area anyway. I think we hear that from others. The farmers markets are not as robust as they used to be. And because we do the online sales, we can also buy and sell. So we've learned we can cut our production down, which reduces our labor here. And I can buy really nice onions from another local grower. We're matching up with some of the really good, younger growers that just do a really nice job growing. And so that's the direction that we've gone. And so it's with Robert helping with all that tech stuff and the platforms. And we have really, really cool systems for pack out, and we use crates to deliver our orders. And yeah.
So yeah, really pulled together now. And the fact that, for Sandy and I, yes, we are chief cook and bottle washers here because our crew isn't that big. But in the end, we are the people to steer the ship. And when you get to the end of that year, it was like, and I could see it coming for many years, that marketing was changing because we were changing generations. And it was just, the new generation wanted convenience and they wanted to do things online. And we could say, okay, this is where this direction is going. And stepping back and doing farmers markets a little bit over last year, I kind of saw that, yes, we did make the correct decision to go this way because the people just were not coming to the farmers markets like they used to. And so with that, I think we were good to go this way. And it's been strong ever since. And we keep sometimes putting in new products, seeing how customers like them. But it also allows us to, I say, slow down a little bit, but keep this farm working and keep our crew going. But, it used to be I had to hire 6 people to help us run markets on Saturdays. Now it's myself and my daughter, Kim. I do deliveries and get that market going, get the one thing going in Saratoga, and Kim does the other bigger deliveries in Glens Falls, and that's all I need to hire. So we're hiring a lot less people now, which is good because they're not available. And it's allowed us to, okay, we're not going to grow this anymore. We're going to buy this in, and we're just not going to offer it anymore because it just takes too much effort for us as we get older.
And labor has gotten very expensive, as everybody knows. We hear that all over the board. Labor it keeps climbing percentage-wise out of the gross. So at some point it doesn't make sense because we want to have enough of a net to be able to really have a nice lifestyle. So our marketing now is one delivery loop. It's about a 100-mile delivery loop for 8 hours on a Saturday. And we have 3 pickup points in Saratoga, Glens Falls. Now, Glens Falls is where we had another big farmers market. And so most of our customers just stuck right with us. So Kim goes there and sits in one spot for 2 hours, and all the customers come and pick up their orders. And then, it works really, really great. We still get to see them one-on-one, can chat with them. So it's been a nice system working for us.
Yeah. The other pickup site is here at the farm.
Yeah. And then at the farm, we have a pickup site.
And everything is pre-sold ahead of time. Isn't that
We know
amazing,
exactly
right?
what we're picking.
Exactly, which I know is always one of the challenges in the winter is, you only have so much quantity oftentimes. So you don't want to oversell if you don't have it.
Right.
Right. So you can put limits on the store. So our store is open now. I just opened our store last night and it closes Thursday morning. And
you make decisions on how much you're going to have of everything. And then some things never change. And some things are, well, I think we're going to have 10 more this week. So let's put that on.
And we're about 40% non-Pleasant Valley Farm products. 40% of our sales. So we stock local honey, syrup.
Cheese.
We get cheeses local, peanut butter.
We're basically dealing with the same vendors that went to the markets with us. So the people we're not like, going very far to get stuff, but it's just offering these things so that because our customers, they want the convenience of getting it and they already know the quality. So that it's familiar to them.
Yep. So we have fish, meat. We're kind of a one-stop shop for people. They really love it.
Today's episode of the Winter Growers Podcast is brought to you by RIMOL Greenhouses.
Whether it's tomatoes to market, flowers in the spring, or your family's harvest, growing in a greenhouse protected from the weather provides the right environment that you need for a harvest that you can count on. RIMOL greenhouses are designed for durability and offer the quality that you need to grow productively year-round. Visit rimolgreenhouses.com to get a quote today.
If I may editorialize for a second, I own a RIMOL tunnel. I love it. We built it ourselves, and I really appreciated the quality of the tunnel as well as the customer service we received in the process. So make sure to check them out. Today's episode is also brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Since 1973, Johnny's has supported farmers and gardeners with superior seeds, tools, and information to help ensure their growing success and help feed their communities and families. The research farm is at the heart of Johnny's, where they trial thousands of varieties and tools every year. Their breeding program uniquely focuses on introducing varieties that meet the needs or solve the challenges mixed market, small farmers, and avid gardeners face. Visit johnnyseeds.com for innovative new varieties and time-tested favorites to grow this season. You can also browse their online growers library, link in the description, for a wealth of free educational resources. The employee owners at Johnny's look forward to growing with you. All right, back to the show.
So what then are your top winter crops that you're producing on farm for your sales?
Well, it'd be spinach, salad mix, chard, and kale is probably the big four, that we're picking. Of course, we have, lots of crops in the root cellar, like the carrots, beets, and potatoes. And then we have the sweet potatoes at this point left. Our winter squash has gone by. So that's the big things that we have for sale at this point. But everything else is a little minor stuff, after that.
But by far, the greens are the most popular thing. That's what people want in the winter. They want the greens. So with our 3 high tunnels, I think we're typically picking somewhere around 200 pounds of greens out of the tunnels. So we're somewhere around $2,000 a week in greens coming out of the tunnels on a retail value. So they really produce. They really do well for us.
And I take it spinach is probably your top seller, would you say, in terms of?
I wouldn't say it's the top. It's not the most popular. People want salad mix.
They want
They want lettuce. So we've been working really hard to have, lettuce year round. This winter, some of the stuff didn't germinate, so it's not as good. But most years we do direct seeded lettuce, and we do also Salanova lettuces, the one cuts. And we can typically have a pretty good supply all winter. We are buying it from a few other farms in the area when we don't have some. So, and ours is growing really nice now. But the lettuce salad mix definitely brings in the most money. I'm trying to remember what some of those numbers were that we had when we did some of those calculations. It's actually all in those notes there, Clara, from the from Frozen Ground. But it definitely is
by far the highest.
By far the highest. Yeah, I think it was approaching like is it $600,000 an acre or something. It's definitely way up there.
What about you have this very cool environmentally controlled root cellar that stores your storage crops. How did you build that out, and what's so special about it?
Well, originally when we wanted to build a barn, I was thinking about a bank barn because we're on a slope here, and so the bottom half, as it went down the slope, was open on one side to the So from the back side, it looks like a 2-story barn. From the front side, it looks like a 1-story barn. And so from there, we built a root cellar, not really knowing in 1989 when we were doing this, what we were really going to do with it, because, but we knew it was important. And from there, we started storing stuff in there and put in a very crude little system that would bring air in to cool it off, and then put a little electric heater down there in case it got too cold. And that's about as far as it went. And we were storing stuff as we went along. If we had an excess amount when it came to the end of November, and then we would hold on to it till the May and carry it into June. And then new stuff would be there for July. And it did pretty well. We did lose some stuff because it wasn't very the best. But then in 2006, when we started doing winter markets, it became very important to have this stuff. Well, it also was the fact that no other farmer in the area had a root cellar, and we weren't filling it. And so we actually, were storing everybody's stuff in ours. And that all gave them, and as the years went along, they all got their own root cellar as time went along. But when we ended up filling it ourselves, which we can fill it up with about 24 tons of produce. So in 2006, we bit the bullet and put a real system in that kept it cold, but it also had to be a system that was designed to handle the high humidity that you need in a root cellar. So we're running it at 34 degrees and near 100% humidity, which has a special heater system within the evaporator that, is timed to come on and melt the ice off, because when you're passing air through on that kind of temperature and that humidity, it becomes an ice block pretty fast. So it works really well. The first time we were buying it, the guy we were kind of balking a little bit the fact that it was going to cost us $10,000 to put this system in. And the guy goes, well, how much produce do you have in there? And we said, well, we have about $80,000 worth in there. And he's like, is there any other questions? I was like, yeah, put it in. It's just like, no. And we've been very happy with it since. It's a very big system, and it handles stuff really nicely, especially when we're putting in sometimes tons at a time. When you get a large load of carrots coming in at the end of the day, it can cool it no problem at all. Bring it down in temperature real fast.
And the quality, like we can have carrots coming out. I remember one summer we had so many carrots, and we still had a lot of them at the end of July or the beginning of August from the year before. And we donated them to a Christian camp nearby. And I looked at those going, I think these carrots look better than the ones that we're digging, because we'd had a lot of rain and we were getting some rot in them. And I was like, well, maybe we should use these. And they still tasted great. So it does a really nice job with holding quality as well. People can't tell that it's an old carrot.
So what percentage would be of your sales is coming from that root cellar compared to the greens? What's the breakdown there?
Let's see. Years ago, we figured out it was almost 50%.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, of our storage crops as opposed to but in the end, when you talk about the 50%, it's just the fact that nobody's going to come to a farmer's market to buy carrots and potatoes.
Right.
They want to come to the market to buy greens. So yes, we sold a lot of potatoes and carrots and beets that way, but it still was the fact of they came for the greens.
Mm-hmm.
So now I would say we're probably 50% greens and 50% of other crops. But that includes sweet potatoes, not just what's in the root cellar, but onions, sweet potatoes, and that kind of stuff. So it's probably about 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's great to see, just how important both really are. And obviously you need to have the infrastructure to be able to store them well. So.
Yeah, that's the investment. We made a lot of investment over the years that have paid off for a big talk. But we have our own room for the sweet potatoes and winter squash, because that takes different temperature, humidity. So that has its own. So we can keep sweet potatoes all the way into June easily, and just continue to sell them all the way to June.
Yeah. Great for that hunger gap this time of year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we start running out of things in March, April. Yeah.
So we're recording this right now. It is the beginning of March. What are you harvesting this week?
We're going to be harvesting lettuce, mustards, arugula, Swiss chard, kale, escarole, spinach, parsley, and I'm thinking there's bok choys. I think that's about it for all. That's the whole gamut of that. And then there's root cellar stuff of, beauty heart radishes and everything else that's in there.
That's a great list considering it's early March, because this is when things start to either run out or just, the awkwardness of the flip time where things are petering out in the tunnels and you can't quite flip it fast enough to get enough growth in. So,
it's that what we started figuring out when 2006 was, it was awful nice, instead of having this, cash flow all the way to the end of November and then having negative cash flow all the way to May, that when you have positive cash flow 52 weeks a year, you can get ahead. That was what, that was like the light came on, that this is really it right here, because now we can go. And then when you have this crew that's here year round and they're very polished, it really doesn't matter when you go on vacation or how long, because they can do it and handle it because they've been there for years.
Exactly. And what about some of the challenges you found with winter growing in terms of pest, pressure, diseases? How do you handle those things? Is it getting any easier over the years, or is it just changing?
We still have some old stuff that's always, there that we've got to be watchful for, which we're used to that, like when the aphids are always there in the fall through the winter, but they don't really multiply very fast until February starts to end. And then you've got to be right on top of them. Some other pests like, spinach crown mite, we never had it last year, which we were surprised. The first time we never have had it. It never showed its face, but that's always one thing that comes at the end of March. And the end of February when it starts getting warmer. But the new things, are always rearing their heads, like the cutworm, army worm thing that, we saw a tiny bit a year ago, and then it was just big deal. I mean, it was just clearing our mustards when they were just coming up out of the ground. And I thought, there's got to be an animal coming in here it's just eaten to nothing, just the whole bed. And I was like, and then it turned out it's just, man, I still find cutworms to this day that are just teeny things that are still there. Diseases, downy mildew, spinach 1 year.
We really don't have.
We don't have big ones.
Yeah, don't have a lot of problem. I think part of it is preventatively we vent. Our vents, we always tell people, are open 24/7. We have as big as vents as possible on the ends of the tunnels. 24/7, they are open unless it's that below zero night and we know the heat's going to come on. Then we do close them. So you're thinking maybe 5 nights out of the whole winter, those vents are closed down. And as much as we can just keep getting fresh air in, I think that just really helps with diseases.
So we are seeing some new stuff. We're seeing some stuff that we've always had, but you're always learning, trying to how to prevent it. Like you got Selenovas, which are very susceptible to white mold, the lettuce drop. And so it's preventative with stuff that you can buy now. I think when you're talking about 2006 and what was available to take care of things, it wasn't as robust as we have now. And so some things are a little easier. But, you run into that. It's that same old thing that Vern Grubinger said, the first 10 years are easy. And then other issues start to show up, and new issues are always showing up. Like, now we got allium leaf miner, attacking our leeks that we're storing. So now we have to buy netting that's worth thousands of dollars. That's going to last us a long time, but still you had to invest in that. So yeah, you've always got new pests that are coming out, all these invasive species that are just going to make game changers of the whole thing.
And I think we had a lot of concerns about doing high tunnels. We weren't the first to put them up. They were around a while because of not being able to do rotation. I mean, that's the game in farming, is you hear that from everybody. Rotation, rotation, rotation. That's really, really important. So we have 3 tunnels. We can't do quite the rotation that we would like to do, but we do usually rotate 1 tunnel out every summer and we cover crop it. So we'll put something different in. So we try to manage the soils. And I think a lot of the research, kudos to Extension and a bunch of places that are doing a lot of research, trying to help the farmers with the growing. You got Becky Seidemann, you've got Meg McGrath, and, a lot of people that are really working with the farmers and trying to give us preventative ways. Why do we have this problem, and how do you, prevent it from happening. So I think it's been very helpful for those of us that are trying to do the winter growing. As you well know, it has its challenges, but
yeah, arugula with bacterial speck. It's like that
hasn't been solved yet. That's a big one right now. I don't know if you get that up in Maine, but
well, if you buy the seed in, you get it.
Yeah, we're thinking it might come.
It's coming in on the seed, and you can't hot water treat, which we hot water treat a lot of the seeds that go into the tunnels for preventiveness, but you can't hot water treat arugula. So you're at the mercy of whatever you bought and how much disease is on it.
Yeah, we do that with spinach because most spinach seed will have fusarium on it, coming from the seed company. So we do hot water treat our spinach because one winter we lost the whole tunnel to it. Although root shield and actinovate, we do a drench every year in our tunnel with that, and we've not had it since. So it's definitely you definitely can prevent it.
Can you quickly describe the hot water treatment system that you use? Can you just describe that to listeners?
Sure. You can actually do it with the is it called a sous vide? We bought a hot water bath, and I think it was $200-$300. It wasn't cheap, and it brings the water to whatever temperature you need. So there's a chart for hot water treating seed. I think spinach is 50 degrees Celsius, and you hold it for maybe 12 minutes. I'm not sure because I don't have the chart in front of me, but you put the seed and we put it into a netted bag, and you put it down in, and you keep it in that 50 degrees Celsius water for like 12 minutes. And then you put it in cold water. And then we run it in our dehydrator with very, very, very little heat just to dry it. And
that's great.
Lasts us a good year, if you do it very precisely to the temperatures, and it kills any disease that's on the seed. So we do that with all
the brassicas.
Brassicas, if they haven't already been done, some of the seed companies are great.
Parsley.
Yeah, brassicas, parsley.
Yeah, and whatever we'll do hot water treat. We do hot water treat because it's an easy thing to do. That's the most preventative because it's almost like guaranteed that there's going to be diseases on your seeds. And this is how you end up with problems growing in the same place for many years. That's why the first 10 years are easy. You start to build up. After 10 years, you have quite a load by buying in seed. So this is where you're always shooting. But hot water treating is very precise. It has to be a precise temperature for a precise amount of time.
Be easy if the seed companies would just do it all. So and some of them do. And high mowing actually will hot water treat your seed for you.
And do some steaming. It was good.
Oh, good to know. Mm-hmm. And what about weed management? So do you use a lot of landscape fabric? What's your system for that in the winter?
Well, we got onto
steaming.
Listening. Well, at first, of course, for many years, it was, that's what you did in January, February was a heck of a lot of weeding. And then we got listening to Andre Catalmo, and yeah, there we are with
steaming.
So we bought a steamer, and for the first 3 years, we did steaming in the tunnels. For the last 3 years, we've done no steaming in the tunnels, and our weed population is almost nothing. One is, your basic priority of this whole farm is not to let weeds go to seed. So if you're going along and you're not adding compost and you're not adding more weed seeds and let them go to seed, then you're going to, deplete the weed seed population. So we've seen over the past 3 years, hardly any weeding that we have to do. We can actually, as we harvesting, we weed a little bit as we see a couple that have come along, but that's about all we're doing now.
And we're not turning the beds as much. We used to go in and chisel plow and redo all the beds. And for the most part, we have permanent beds, but every once in a while we will turn a whole tunnel if we have to. And so that works really well for us now.
Yeah, we just have a walk behind rototiller now that just turns under peat moss and fertilizers and anything else we need to turn under.
So we use peat moss for our organic matter in the tunnels. We don't use compost, and we don't put things in that have salts. So we do a fertilizer that is Chilean free.
And is that a purchased product from a supplier that you use, or?
Yeah,
that's North Country Organics. Yep, the 543 non-Chilean.
It's all minerals, so it's not animal based.
Have you ever tried using crab shell or any of,
No, we don't live close enough to the ocean.
Oh, I know, but not that far.
No, we haven't. We use a lot of meals, peanut meal.
We're watching what, because we're taking soil tests every year. We're watching where are we short on, where are we not. If we're really short on calcium, then we'd be looking at crab meal, but if we're not short on calcium at this point, then, we're running everything to optimum, to excess in it, because it's really, you're using a lot of, you're planting close, and these, what values do you use when no one's really done any kind of, research hasn't been done by the colleges yet on how much do you really need. They're just getting into spinach. And so, after all these years, they're finally doing it. So it's, they do know a little bit, but they also know what we're doing, and they're noticing that it does work.
Well, they've done a bunch with spinach and nitrogen. We were part of that nitrogen testing experiment here, and so we did all these different rates down a whole bed of nitrogen, and it came out exactly what we've been doing for years. Is 200 pounds of N to the acre is what worked really well. If you put more, it didn't help. If you put a lot less, you just got less. You got less production, and then they weren't as nice looking plants. So, we work hard at our soil tests and get everything right in that optimum condition for plant growing.
And then you're just getting ready for tomatoes during the summer, which are a heck of a lot of potassium. But for the winter growing, it's all about, a lot of pre-plant, because you need it there when it needs to go, and it's not going anywhere. It's not doing anything until the plant actually uses it. But we always find by the spring, when we go to plant our tomatoes, that there's nothing left. And so we've got to add again. So it's used up those 200 pounds pretty fast. I mean, they're expecting you to put down 120 pounds to grow a crop of spinach, and it's just a once over and it's done. We're expecting to put down 200 pounds, and we're expecting to pick it for the next 5 months. So you've got to have enough fertility there for the plant to keep growing for 5 months and keep picking it every couple of weeks. That's a big ask.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Especially if it's a heated tunnel too, where production's much faster. So, and what about row cover management? Obviously that is always another bane of the winter grower. Do you have any tricks or techniques that you've sort of landed on now, 35 years later? Would you ever get rid of it for any reason if you could?
We had thoughts of it. We were looking into the climate battery system, but that, was right there. A few things have stopped us from doing it. One is, we're as we're getting older, we're not wanting to do as much investment into this farm anymore. But also it was the fact that we would have had to have brought up a lot more electricity, because those fans are really using a lot of electricity. And I'm thinking, boy, you got to put in a lot more solar panels to pay for all that electricity. And so we kind of stopped thinking about it. And also, Eisenhower made a famous statement that the best fertilizer for a farmer's fields is the farmer's footsteps. So putting the row cover on and off every day is kind of my time to walk up and down the whole tunnel and catch diseases, insects, voles, things like that are, there. If you don't walk it, you're not seeing it. And just doing what they call windshield observation of opening a door and saying, yep, it looks good in there, and not walking it, I think is not good planning, because things go wrong and go bad in a hurry in the wintertime. So I'm the one who puts the row covers on for the most part when we're here, which we were gone, I think, for 6 weeks this past winter. So yeah, other people had to do it. But when I'm here, I'm the one who does it. And I don't mind it.
Techniques.
Well, the technique we're using, because it's 150 feet long, our row covers are a P30, because they need to be strong enough to be able to pull on them at that length. So that's a lot of weight. And having people who understand how to, work together in tandem to bring them to the middle, bring all the layers together at once in the middle during the day, and then spread them back out in the evening, takes a little bit of technique so you don't rip it. And also it goes fast. My daughter and I can put the row covers on and off in all 3 tunnels, 3 layers each, in less than 10 minutes. So we've got a technique down. I think Michael Kilpatrick has it on a little video showing us putting it on and off. But to do it by myself, it takes longer. But I've done it a lot by myself when my kids were in college and there was nobody here. But now they're out, but they're here, a bunch to help me.
Yeah. So then that brings me to what does the future of the farm look like? You have, both your kids are involved in certain enterprises with the farm, but are they going to take it over? What is your hopes or dreams for this?
Boy, that's you got to ask us that in another year, Clara.
Okay.
Right now, we're really just hoping and praying that something happens or comes along because we have no definitive plan. Right now, we're sort of in this the next 5 years, we'd like to transition this farm to somebody. At the moment, it's not going to be my daughter. She's doing her own business. She has her own cut flower business. She does work here 3 days a week. She leaves the grandkids here those 3 days a week. So I don't get any work done when she's working here, but I really enjoy having them. And so she grows some stuff at her place. And she's only 15 minutes away on another farm, and some stuff here. And my son, obviously with his business, he has no intention of taking this over with vegetables. So we're not sure right now. Ideally, we would like to, get somebody in, a young farmer, somebody that, an apprentice, somebody that we could teach and train, and they just gradually take it over. I think that would be our biggest hope. We'd hate to close it down. We do see other farms closing down, and it'd be a shame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Farm.
Sure.
We have a really great clientele. We'd like to keep servicing our customers. So that's that's the best we know right now.
But with our age and energy level, we just need to slow down a little bit more every year, and we can keep it going for a while. That's one thing great with the store is we can just put on, not 10 of this, but 5 of something, and then say, well, that's enough. That's all we're going to pick.
Yeah. Well, I hope maybe someone listening to this podcast will maybe reach out and inquire more details about what your dream is.
We've always had a lot of interns here. We've had interns since 1992, from all over the world. We've had international and then a lot local, and a lot of them have started their own farms. So you have Nate and Gabrielle, they're up in Maine. They're fantastic. You've got Dominic and Kelsey. They were here. Oxbow Farm. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. And it's really great to isn't that what we all want is just more and more farmers.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, you have definitely trained a lot of amazing farmers out there. But of course, there's the dilemma. When you lose them, then they're not there to carry on.
We're sort of like, we're getting really tired of having them come in the spring, and we teach and train them all summer and then they leave. So we had,
right.
We had 2 this last summer, and they're now farming in Western New York. So that was Kyle and Becca Brown. So hopefully we'll see them up and coming on doing fantastic things as well. But be good to have some that stay around.
Great. Well, I will definitely have to circle back in a year and see where things are at that point. And we fingers crossed. So let's jump into the lightning round. Are you ready for the lightning round questions?
I guess we didn't. We just threw them on there. So we'll see how we do.
Okay. Well, you're welcome to answer them both or skip if you don't feel called to that question. So whatever you want to do.
Okay.
So number 1, favorite crop to grow, cook, and eat.
Oh, well, I think spinach is one of our favorites, because we can have it year round. Spinach. Anything else? What do you like to grow?
No, we're fine. The lightning question, we're done.
Okay. We really are going lightning. Okay. Number 2, what gets you up in the morning?
What gets me up in the morning? I just enjoy what I do every day. Every day is different. Every day is new. Every day is a challenge. It's not a problem. It's that's why I like it's challenges. And I just like being outside, like what I'm doing. I love the change every day of everything being different. So I've been farming for 30 some odd years, and then every day it's a different day.
What about you, Sandy?
So it's not the sun, because I thought he'd say the sun, because he always gets up with the sun or before the sun.
I'm up long before the sun.
What gets me up? I think that once I wake up, I'm like, oh, I've got to do this, I got to do that. I think just that long list of things that has to happen. But or if the grandkids are coming, it's like, oh, I need to get ready, for them to come, or get breakfast or something like that. So he's definitely more driven to get out the door in the morning than I am.
Okay, what's your favorite tool?
Probably mine's the golf cart. I love the golf carts. They were very instrumental in helping us. He broke his leg one summer in the middle of the summer, and our tractor mechanic drove in with a truck, and he took that off, and he's like, "Here, you need this." And we've had them ever since. We have 3 of them, and they're really great. Any other tool for you?
I don't know. I don't know about a favorite.
Push-on.
Okay, moving on. Hardest part of farming.
Right now, labor has been the biggest challenge, I think. Labor and long hours, just having that endurance to go, 80, 90 hours every week, the endurance of it in all different climates.
What about you, Paul?
Just figuring out, how to, what we're going to do with this farm. That's probably the hardest part.
Yeah.
It's our kids like the farm, and they like being part of it. But they've known since day one, we have not saddled them with, you have to take this over.
Yeah.
So that's why they've gone off to do it their own, but they still like to be around us and like to be involved. And we couldn't run it without them, because they all run certain aspects and they all get to do what they like to do here. But, just figuring out what we're going to do with this place. So, it's just going to be a lot of lawn, or it's going to be, a place that's actually still producing food is a good question.
Yeah. I mean, it's your life work and your home too. It's a combination of many different layers. What is your favorite smell and your least favorite smell on the farm?
I love the honeysuckle in the spring. And probably the least favorite, I think we wrote this down, our least favorite is rotting onions. Or how about in the spring when you forget that you planted the brassicas right next to the house, and they're all starting to rot in the spring. That's right in your house.
Yeah, those seem to be the top ones: rotting onions, brassicas, and potatoes. How do you turn off farming, or do you?
For Paul, he just walks in the house, and if I ask him a question for something outside, he's like, I know I can't deal with that. I'm inside,
Yeah, I have no
good boundary there.
Yeah, I don't have to be thinking about it, or it worries me, or I should be doing. No, when I walk in the house, I'm thinking about house stuff. I'm going to make dinner. I'm going to, I got to fold the laundry. I'm done with what's going on out there. And then when I walk outside, I'm immediately turned on to what I've got to do out here. Mm-hmm. So when we go on vacations, I'm not, like thinking about the farm all the time. I've got people there. It's if they need something, they'll call me.
Yeah, and I have to get off the farm because my work is inside and outside. So getaway is great. We have a family camp up in the Adirondacks that my family built back in the 60s that we own now. So that's our getaway. So we like to try to get up there several times during the summer for a few days and just, rest, relax, still take book work with you, but
right. It's hard to completely get away. What do you love besides farming?
Oh boy, traveling.
I was going to say traveling is what we've been on. So
and family time, I think, is really important. Mm-hmm. And we really enjoy visiting other farms. So we couldn't see any farms in Antarctica, but that's probably one of our first vacations we ever did that we didn't see farms. We were in Europe over Christmas. And, if we had a choice, we were going out to see some farms or eat at a farm or whatever. So we just love visiting other farms. Yeah.
The Greece island, Crete, was probably the most fantastic farm. And we visited several farms there.
Yeah.
So that was just the scenery of farming was just amazing there. Better than any other place.
Yeah. No,
we love visiting, but I like seeing what's going on with agriculture in other places.
Yeah. And having time for our grandkids now, because we have the 2 grandkids, they're 3 and 1. So trying to have time for them is really important.
Who's an inspiring farmer or land steward you'd want to have as a dinner guest, living or deceased?
Wow. I think there's so many great farmers that are out there. And of course, we loved Chris Blanchard. He was, he was a great farmer and a great friend, and his kids were the same age as ours, and we used to visit each other back and forth. And I think Brian Bates is just really inspiring as well. So we enjoy him.
We love seeing who's the new rock star coming along. In our say who's the next person to watch. That's what I always enjoy doing now.
What is your learning edge, or where do you feel like your abilities and understanding as a farmer could grow?
Learning edge?
Yeah, what can we do better?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you look at farming as a never-ending learning process, what do you want to keep learning?
For us, I think working with employees, managing and leading, learning how to lead. I think for us, we always say we need to have people coming on board that are self-motivated. We don't want to babysit. And so I think, we certainly could probably work, manage employees better.
What do you feel is your gift to give on behalf of people and the land?
Wow. I think training, inspiring other farmers to, stay in agriculture, produce food for their communities, take care of God's land. Let's not pollute. Let's, leave it better than you found it. I think just encourage people to really, and if you're going to farm, enjoy farming. If you don't enjoy it, you shouldn't be in it. We love farming. It's been a great lifestyle for us. It's a great way to raise kids. People always say, well, is there anything you'd rather do? No, we've always, loved the farming. I would say Paul probably has a little deeper love for it. I wouldn't mind traveling a little bit more and really slowing down at this point, but it has been a great lifestyle for us, but only because we've really put a lot into it and really had it make money for us. And you can make money in farming. You just have to do it smart.
And finally, how will you grow old, or how are you growing old farming?
Starting to put parameters of saying, okay, we're not working past 6 o'clock at night anymore. And
it only took you 35 years to figure that one out.
Oh no, it's been a slow. We're not doing this anymore. We're not. We're slowing down this way. But yeah, trying to grow old gracefully. Knowing your limits, knowing your, because for a long time I can pick that up. I can move it. Now you get to that point where you look at some young kid and say, you can pick that up. And you can do
delegate.
Yeah, push that on to more, and just realizing that I just can't do this anymore, and I'm not going to. And so you make adjustments of what you want to do. I mean, I can probably, for the most part, I can probably still work most people under the table, but I don't want to do what I did 20 years ago. And that's all there is. I think that, you start realizing that you got to last a few more years. And that realization comes into play. And the better you can realize it, the better the happier you'll be. And I think it's a frame of mind.
Yeah. And the thing that pushed us to do Antarctica now is that as we travel, we want to be able to enjoy the traveling. We see a lot of elderly, handicapped people on some of these trips. And Antarctica was one that, we wanted to be able to get out and kayak, and we wanted to be able to get on and off the Zodiacs and walk with the penguins. And we knew that was going to be a little bit more of a strenuous type of a trip in the cruise. So we wanted to do it while we were still really fit. And I think for me anyway, I want to slow down enough on the farm that I'm not going to really affect my body negatively. I think farmers, work hard and they can wear their bodies out. And we're always after the young kids. Don't pick up 2 crates at a time. Just, take care of your back, take care of your knees.
Don't be a bull in a china closet.
Yeah. Just, think about, taking care of your body over time so it lasts a long, long time. Gives you good quality of life.
Well, that's wisdom right there.
That's why we're traveling a lot right now, because we have the stamina and we have the ability to do. When we're going out on a lot of these trips and they land at a certain port in Mediterranean, and we're going to take the one that's going to be 8 to 10 hours of excursion. It's going to be the most demanding, and we can do it. And I don't want to be the one that only can go for 4 hours or only sit in a bus and then come back in, because you don't see what you want to see and really enjoy the trip. So in a lot of ways, vacations are not really vacations in the sense of we're sitting around in a boat and just drinking. And so, no, we're like, we leave the ship at 7:30 in the morning and we're gone till 5, 6 o'clock at night and pushing all the time. So it's not Sandy's favorite thing to say, okay, you got to be up and ready at 7:30 in the morning, But, for me, I've already been up a couple hours, so let's go, So it is important. And so we're trying to save some of our energy for the traveling that we want to see and things we want to do with our friends and travel to see our family and stuff. Because most of my brothers live down south, so we have to go down there if we want to see them.
Well, I wish you many, many more years of wonderful travels and activities. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. You both have a wealth of information, and I would love to have you back for another season and can cover all sorts of other things we didn't even touch on today. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.